What's going on, everybody? Doug here, one of the hosts, producers, and creators of the Genre Review Light podcast, bringing you all a review roundup episode this week. No full episode of the Genre Review Light podcast this week. The boys and I will be back next week with a very special episode of the podcast. Nick and myself will be going to a very special IMAX advanced screening of Doom Part 2 this Sunday. We are so stoked for this movie. We're all big Denis Villeneuve fans. We all love the first Dune movie. So next week will be a full episode dedicated to the filmography of the legendary director Denis Villeneuve. And of course, Nick and myself's review Dune Part 2. Like I said, we are so stoked. We're all big IMAX fans. We're all big Dune fans. We're all big Denis Villeneuve fans. So it'll be a very special episode. But in the meantime, I have a very special review roundup episode for you all this week. I'll be reviewing the new Bob Marley biopic, Bob Marley, One Love. As always, guys, you can find the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcast needs met. We also have a full audio show on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Midway Avenue Productions. Whether on YouTube or Spotify or Apple, please rate, review, please follow, subscribe. We want to hear from you guys. Are you liking the show, not liking the show? Are you neutral? What do you want to hear more from us? We are always open to hear your comments and feedback. Trust me, we value your feedback, and your support honestly means the world to us. But please, don't be shy. Rate, review, subscribe, follow, share us with your friends, fellow podcast lovers, family, whatever, coworkers. We want to hear from you guys. But seriously, the support means the world to us. And in honor of your support, we have a goal of hitting 200 ratings on Apple Podcasts. That is our goal. We want to hit it by April. So we'll be doing a giveaway of an Amazon gift card. So comment, rate on Apple Podcasts. We want to hear from you guys. Seriously, that's how we get our more traction to the show. Amazon gift card giveaway. But we got to hit 200. We want to hit 100 at least by March and 200 by April. So please rate, comment on Apple Podcasts. We want to hear from you guys. And seriously, that will help us out so much. So thank you guys so much for your ongoing support. It truly means the world to us. Again, enter that giveaway, and I'll be DMing you with the winner and the code of the gift card. So look out for that. Alrighty, guys. Like I said, on this week's review roundup episode, I have my review of Bob Marley, One Love, a movie that I've been super excited for since I saw the teaser trailer for it. I want to say back in July when it debuted right before the Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 screening I went to. And I think I knew it was coming, but I was like, didn't kind of follow the story as much. I'm a Bob Marley fan. I'm not a diehard big Bob Marley fan, but I do love his music, a lot of his songs in his catalog. And I love his, message about peace, love, and positivity. And also, I had a really cool Bob Marley shirt that I wore all the time. It was navy blue with like a Jamaican flag, and it was a picture of Bob on it. And I wore that literally all of 8th grade and I think most of high school. I got on a cruise when I went to the Bahamas. I love that shirt. But, his message of peace, love, and positivity is something that I definitely embody or I try to embody in myself. I think it's very important that, to this very day, this movie takes place in the 70s. The rise of Bob Marley and the Wailers, his whole legacy and his music. But I do think the message of peace, love, and positivity and unity is as important as it is today. And as someone who wants to spread positivity and love stories about that, I was definitely sold from the trailers, but also just getting into the legacy and his message. So let's get into it, shall we? So, like I said, I remember seeing the trailer back in July, and I said, whoa, I had to see this movie as soon as possible. I was just floored by it. I was like, if a trailer can get me that hype for a movie, don't care whether it's a biopic, drama, sci-fi, history, whatever, action, comedy, you got me. You got my money. I'm there. And I was super stoked for it. It was coming out in January at the time. I think I pushed back. So I was like, wow, the trailer gave me goosebumps. The use of his music. I don't really know the actor playing him at the time, but I knew it was the guy who made King Richard. And Brad Pitt was producing it. Had a great set of writers. I was like, okay, I'm there. Day one, I'm there. So, but I was worried a bit because I think the embargo dropped right before the movie came out and the reviews were not good. I mean, they were in the low 30s. I want to say that it's still in the low 30s. It might have gone up a little bit. I'm going to check it right now. I think it's all right, it went up a little bit. It's in the low 40s, so not the best. But again, audience score, 92%. And I think a lot of people are listening to more of the audience score more than ever the past couple of years. So critic score, audience score, better. But, you'll hear my full take on it during this review. But you want, as always, start with the good, start with the pros. I think Kingsley Ben-Adir is a star. He's becoming one of my new favorite actors from Malcolm X and Regina King's One Night in Miami. I didn't see him in the show with I think it was about Trump on Showtime, but he did a pretty good Obama impression, or sorry, Obama not character, but like good job like playing our former president. I remember seeing him in a small role in the movie called The Commuter. Not the best movie with Liam Neeson, but I remember seeing him in a small role in that movie. And of course, he was one of the Kens in Barbie, and he had a great scene during the beach off scene in Barbie where he was like, if you're gonna beach him off, gotta beach me off first. I thought it was really funny, but like his like smile, his kind of just like energy was very kind of like infectious in the best way. Like you can tell he having a good time on screen, and I was like, oh yeah, he's the one playing Bob Marley. So you'll keep an eye out for this guy, and it's really cool to see this guy's progression of like he's a great example of working hard in entertainment in Hollywood. Taking small roles will definitely help you land a role like playing a legend like Bob Marley one day. And I do think that all the small roles he did, whether it's stuff I mentioned or roles he had in the OA or even in the movie called King Arthur with Guy Ritchie, again, he's definitely working his way up to become a huge actor, household name. And I do think this role will definitely put him on the map for sure. And, from what I heard from other podcasts too, is that he was handpicked by Bob's son, Ziggy Marley, one of the producers of the movie. And that's pretty high praise. If you were hand selected by the Bob Marley family, especially his son, that means you get to caught the attention of, a lot of people. And I think that's really cool that as an actor, it must be very kind of humbling, but also kind of very just like rewarding too. And, hearing him in other interviews, whether it's the Real Blend podcast, Breakfast Club, whatever, he's a very charming guy. He's very charming. He's very humble. He's very down to earth. He's very, passionate about his career, himself, and he's very, very critical about himself too. And I was like, you know what? This guy definitely seems like a kind of dude that I would be friends with or kind of want to like hear more from him. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing him more as an actor. I think he did a phenomenal job as Bob Marley. Like he embodies Bob Marley. He truly brings the spirit of Bob back to life. And, I think it's kind of a bit of a hit and miss in musicals. I think, musical-based biopics, that is. I think stuff like in Taron Egerton and Rocky Man as Elton John, Bohemian Rhapsody as Rami Malek as Freddie Mercury. I think Jamie Foxx as Ray. Even the cast of Straight Outta Compton, when it's casted right, it definitely shows. And when it's casted incorrectly, it definitely shows even more. And I think this was a perfect casting. I think there was some controversy and backlash of him being a British actor playing a Jamaican. Again, as a white American, I don't know much really about that. But to me, just seeing it from an outsider perspective, seeing it from a movie lover and also as a film critic, I was very impressed with his performance. I thought he did a great job. I thought his accent was seemed very authentic. Didn't seem like he was kind of doing a caricature, kind of like or a bad imitation of him. He definitely has a lot of love in his performance. Like I said, he's not trying to like do like an SNL impersonation or kind of like a mimic of him. He's definitely trying to do justice to, playing this icon and all the respect he has for the Marley family and making them proud. I do think that he's a good job of definitely embodying Bob. And I think also if you see like the footage of Bob on YouTube, whatever, or old footage, you can definitely tell like he definitely did his research and wanted to like, do justice to the story and the legacy of this icon. Again, the simple movements of like smiling, the way he moved on stage really shows the commitment that Kingsley had for his performance. And like I said, I've seen other biopics, I've seen other musical biopics where like you can tell like this is kind of like a half-ass impersonation or kind of just like a really basic performance. I thought what Kingsley Ben-Adir did was something very special. And I do think he's definitely one of the hearts and soul of this movie. And speaking of that, I'll tell you what, Lashana Lynch in this is phenomenal. She blew me away. She plays Rita Marley, Bob's wife, and the mother of his kids. I think she's becoming stronger and stronger as an actor with each role she takes, whether it's in Captain Marvel, whether it was in James Bond, No Time to Die. She's able to really embody the character she's playing, and I think this might be her best role to date. I thought she was very charming, and obviously in Captain Marvel. I liked No Time to Die a lot. I thought she had great rapport and great chemistry with uh, Daniel Craig, but really the amount of love she showed, despite what her character as Rita goes through and what she's gone through, what she's going through, is very moving. And you can tell, despite all the odds and trauma that she went through, she wants to continue to spread love and contribute to all that she has to her music and the band of the Wailers, but also to love that she has for Bob, despite what Bob and her have gone through in their lives, both romantically, personally, and career wise. The intimate scenes she has with Kingsley as Bob were really emotional, and her range in this is incredible. You can tell she's broken, yet she still has so much love for Bob despite their history. And I thought whenever she was on screen, she stole the scene. She stole the movie. Like, I think her accent was, again, very authentic. You can tell, like, at Kingsley that, like, she was putting the effort. She did her research on Rita. She worked with her dialect coach to really bring this character to life. And, obviously, it's a real person she's playing. But, again, she definitely does justice to Rita, also to the Marley family as well. There's a scene in the alley in this, where they're in Paris, was definitely one of the best scenes of the entire movie. Like I said, and she really steals the show with this scene. They have great chemistry, the two of them. And I thought that, whenever they were on screen together, I felt the love. I felt the passion. I felt like they wanted to tell this story with all the justice in the world. They want to tell the story as actors who really care about the material. You can tell they're probably fans of Bob and the music and, Rita and the Wailers and the legacy of this family, that, like, hey, this is really important to us. I never felt like they were phoning it in or just like, look, another Hollywood role for us. Look at us. No, you can tell the love and passion was there in the performances throughout the entire thing. What I really noticed too right away was the cinematography by Robert Elswit, who is a legendary cinematographer. He worked with Ronaldo Marcus Green, the director, writer of this movie, did King Richard. He worked on that movie as well. And I was hearing a podcast on Real Blend. Great show, by the way. Sean, Jake, and Kevin do a great job on that show. And Sean, one of the managing editors at Real Blend, as well as one of the hosts of the podcast, was talking about that, or talking to Ronaldo, and Ronaldo was saying that he met Robert Elswit, his cinematographer, at a Sundance thing years ago, and they became like really close friends, and that like the only guy that he trusted with this material was Robert Elswit as the cinematographer. But the way that he's able to kind of capture Jamaica, I was really floored by the cinematography at the moment the movie starts, because Jamaica, the way he's able to capture Jamaica really felt like a character of its own, and all the scenes felt really intimate. And again, I like that. Again, this movie was shot on Jamaica, on location. It wasn't a green screen. It wasn't Miami. It wasn't LA for Jamaica. Like, they went to the, source of the story, the material, because again, if it wasn't, I think we all would have noticed. And it really feels kind of cheap with a green screen, or kind of like a Atlanta for Jamaica. It wouldn't have felt like really authentic, or like, I think, true to the story. But again, all the scenes felt intimate, and the way he captured the recording scenes and music scenes alone, I thought were done masterfully. Again, he won an Oscar for There Will Be Blood. He's, again, a legendary cinematographer. He's a master in his craft, and I thought that this was a perfect pairing of the story with cinematography. And you know what? Going on about the Wailers, the ensemble of the Wailers, the cast playing the Wailers, was magnetic. I felt very similar with the band, with the NWA and Straight Outta Compton. Like, everyone worked so well together. All of them had great chemistry together, despite not having like the big roles. But being ensemble, being the Wailers, is definitely one of the hearts and soul of this movie as well. I thought they truly felt like a real band, and they all contributed to the music element extremely well. And I really liked seeing them all together reenact the recording sessions and concerts, because again, it felt true to the story. It felt authentic. But again, it's definitely the DNA of Bob's career is Bob Marley and the Wailers, like how they recorded stuff, how they made their album, how they made Exodus. Like, that really is important to the story. And if they casted like A-list actors, it probably would have been distracting. But like a lot of these actors playing the ensemble of the Wailers, it wasn't distracting. It felt natural. It felt authentic. And I was really enjoying whenever they were on screen together, whether we're not recording, whether it was hanging out in London or in the house, kind of talking about music, whatever. I liked the kind of just like the camaraderie they had with all each other. And again, it really added to the DNA and the kind of like the profile of the movie itself. I like the actor playing James Dorn. He played the producer, Chris Blackwell, which I kind of learned about after seeing that he's also a Jamaican British um, uh, producer. And but what this is more of a con, but I'll bring it up now, is that I do wish they could have explored more of him with Bob, because I like the chemistry they had with he had with Kingsley Ben-Adir as Bob, and I like that when we were talking to each other, it felt like, you know, it was the producer talking to, you know, the musician, and you know, you can tell like Chris had a lot of love for Bob and was kind of very protective of him too, to make sure that, you know, he doesn't get caught up in the wrong thing, or doesn't kind of like you know, get hurt, or you know, get caught up in the wrong you know, kind of crosshairs of what was going on in Jamaica at the time. And the chemistry was really kind of charming between the two of them. Speaking of characters, the music itself is a character of its own. I didn't feel the music was, you know, I think again, other musical biopics and other like, you know, other movies based on music and bands, whatever, or shows based off bands, I don't always feel like the music was a character. So look at the music, it's our, you know, it's our bread and butter. I felt the entire time in this movie that the music was a character of its own. I do think like stuff like Walk the Line or Bohemian Rhapsody, like the music's there, and even in the most recent Elvis biopic with Austin Butler, the music's there, but like it's the music's kind of more like the scope and spectacle of it all, which again is very entertaining as an audience. If you go for that, you go for that. A lot of people do like that. However, I thought the music in this was a standalone character through and through. I give a lot of props to director, you know, Ronaldo Marcus Green for, you know, emphasizing the importance of the music enough to make it a character and that would stand alone from Bob and the band, like and the band Wailers and Bob, that is their music. But if you take them out in certain scenes, the music's still present, and it's definitely a really, really crucial part of the movie and the storytelling, that it definitely stands on its own as its own character throughout the entire runtime. I say this a lot, I mean, all the time. I really do. You probably sick of me hearing this now. I really give a lot of props to Paramount Pictures that this wasn't a streaming movie. This could have been really a Paramount Plus original, whatever. Make the streaming that, like, hey, you know what? We're going to dump it on Paramount Plus to get subscribers. You know, we have a big Bob Marley biopic. Come look at us. We're going to promote it everywhere. Boom. There is definitely a commitment from Paramount Pictures and also the Marley family that they were committed to a theatrical release of this. Despite the negative reviews, I do give a lot of props that, you know, even movies like this, not the big blockbusters of like an Avengers or, you know, Argyle or what, Spider-Man, Black Panther, whatever. I'm trying to think what else came out like this year, like The Beekeeper or whatever, or, you know, let's go Doom Part 2. Like, this still, these movies are still important for the big screen with an audience, for theatrical release. And again, this really could have been like, look, Paramount Plus has a new Bob Marley biopic. Let's check it out. No. And again, you know, again, the box office, I think it made like $55 million, I want to say, like over the course of Valentine's President's Day weekend, holiday weekend, which went from Wednesday to like Monday. It did pretty damn well. And despite negative reviews, there definitely was an audience for this. There definitely was a hunger or kind of like, you know, an attraction to a Bob Marley biopic. So it definitely shows commitment from the studio and from the Marley family. Like, hey, you know what? This movie was made for the theaters. And Ziggy Marley opens the film saying how much this movie means to him and his family, that they were very involved with the production, and you know, they're all producers of the movie too. So it's definitely refreshing to make sure that, you know what, even the biopics are still made for the theaters of the big screen. And you know, I saw it by myself. I went to the theaters on a Monday during the holiday, and I went in like around noon, whatever, and there was no one there but me. So I had a nice private solo theater, and no complaints. I thought it was very intimate at times. Me watching kind of like behind the scenes, I felt very kind of like my first person, kind of like I was like observing the life of Bob Marley, like as an outsider. Again, could have been better with an audience too. I'm not denying that, but to me, it was definitely kind of experience of seeing it on my own, with by myself in a solo theater. And you know, I'll end on this with my pros and my goods, of course. It seemed like that, you know, Ronaldo Marcus Green, the director and writer of this, is that he has a love for making biopics or movies about, you know, true icon, true stories. Like, again, he made King Richard, that got Will Smith his, you know, first Oscar win, and then this back to back. So I'm very curious to know if he's going to do more biopics or more stories about, you know, biopics or movies based on true stories. Because again, I think he definitely has a good eye for telling stories, whether it's King Richard or whether it's this. And if he does, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more of what he does. Or again, he does something away from the biopics and historical dramas. I'm there too. I think he's good. I think he has a good eye for storytelling, and definitely has a good eye for telling, movies based on true stories, true events, and true people. However, I probably do have a lot more cons than I do good. And I remember walking into this, I was hearing the same thing. The movie is messy. The pace is messy. And I was like, huh. It definitely didn't, deter me away from seeing this, but I definitely didn't make it any better. I'll say that. I will say right off the bat, this movie is definitely an example of the trailers being better than the actual product or movie itself. And I think like people seen that with Argyle. I disagree. I think Argyle was a great movie. It's a lot of fun. But again, to each their own. All film is subjective. But the way I felt seeing the first trailer for this movie, and I avoided the second trailer because I wanted to go in like more blind. I was sold by the first trailer. I had goosebumps. I said, I cannot wait for this movie. It's going to be probably the best movie of 2024. I feel it. I can't see it. I still feel that way after seeing that trailer back in July. The trailer that I saw right before Mission Impossible was one of the best trailers I've ever seen in my life. And it did not live up to the hype of that trailer, unfortunately. This movie definitely has a major issue with its structure of storytelling and what it wants to accomplish telling. Like I said, I was hearing before seeing it that it's all over the place. It's messy. It doesn't know what it wants to tell, what story it wants to tell. And I completely agree with everyone saying that. The 44% Rotten Tomatoes, it's weird. I definitely feel more positive than that, but I can definitely see why that movie got that rating. I can also see why the movie got the 92% on audience score, because there's so many people that are just big Bob Marley fans. I mean, his music is timeless. It still holds up today. I was playing his music the other day when I was cleaning up the house, playing in the background. I was doing, errands, whatever. So I can see both sides of the argument. However, this movie is all over the place in terms of pacing, 3-act structure, which seems to be, again, the common thing people are docking this movie for. It jumps all over the place in his career and doesn't really narrow its focus on what story it wants to tell. The movie starts off with a quick scene of him as a boy, young boy with his mom, and then it cuts to him already being established, what was going on in Jamaica. He's already a famous musician, whatever, and he's about to do this this Unity concert in Jamaica in '76. So like, okay, I was like, cool, wow, I definitely admire that they're gonna do like the from life origin to death thing. But quickly on, I was kind of like, I kind of wish they did that instead, personally. And I just do think that the movie should committed to that, or they really should committed to like this time. And because the movie starts off with '76 during the sort of violent era in Jamaican history. But this movie really jumps over the place, and I mean it skips around a lot. It had a lot of flashback scenes that I felt either didn't need to be included or just paced poorly, that did not help the pace at all. The pace, this movie I think is like 2 hours. I want to say, I want to give or take 2 hours. I'm checking IMDb right now just to make sure. No. 140, an hour 47. It feels like 2:15, almost 2.5 hours at times. And I was like, oof, where are we going with this? The pace is off. I felt it right away. And I'm like, it skips a lot from the first Unity concert he's trying to throw, and then it skips 3 months. He's in London, and then it goes back and forth between like more time in the future, then more time back in his past, and it was just all over the place. And I was like, whoa, hold up now. Settle down, take a breath, focus. And by the movie skipping around so quickly and so often, or going back and forth from like past to present, a few months in the future or whatever, it doesn't give us enough time to sit with that or reflect of like what has happened in his life. How is this progressing forward? Where is his career taking him now? It just goes all over the place. And I was like, oof, this is not the best way to tell a story in general, but a biopic about a legendary musician, not the best way. And to me, I was like, oh, like they're just going all over the place. And I do think I had a bit of an issue with King Richard too. I think King Richard had a long runtime, and it definitely dragged middle on to the end. The first half, I was like, oh, we're going. This is great. Here we go. But I do think Ronaldo Marcus Green had definitely has an issue with pacing in terms of storytelling and structure. And what I heard from other podcasts, and I was written down after the movie ended, was that it doesn't do the best job of educating people that aren't familiar with Bob Marley's life or his history. It just assumes that we know what was going on, or you already know what's going to happen. You already know this happened. But as someone who didn't know, and a lot of people are saying like, well, I went in knowing a little about his life and a little about his music, but not the full story. The movie thinks we already know that. And that to me is like, you gotta explain the movie as if no one knows who Bob Marley is. That's a very kind of weird thing to say, but again, what I think that Straight Outta Compton did, or what Ray did, or Rocky Man did, does a really good job of explaining, okay, here to here to here, who these people were, let's get on with it, what happened here, this part, this part, this part. And, Straight Outta Compton is a long movie, but that paced perfectly, and they do a good job of explaining Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, Eazy-E, Yella, MC Ren, and they spend more time obviously on the three, Eazy-E, Dre, and Ice Cube, but it does a way better job of explaining their stories than this movie did. And I do think this movie needs to take a few more drafts, and then again help people explain. Yes, it's Hollywood, obviously they're gonna liberties, whatever, but it just felt messy because I think what I was saying for myself is that at times I was struggling to put some of the pieces of the story together, and I don't like that as a movie goer or a critic. It just felt messy, and a lot of people are saying this felt messy because they just weren't spending enough time on things. And it was like, cool, jump around, back, flashback, this scene. They should have taken more time or had more drafts of the script, because it just didn't feel finished, or it was kind of ideas brainstormed together that weren't developed properly. And you definitely feel that movie no matter what. And unfortunately, I think what I'm hearing from all my fellow critics and all the fellow reviewers is that it definitely suffers from a traditional biopic route. It doesn't really add anything unique or different from what we've seen before. It's definitely basic in terms of the biopic genre, and I really wanted it to be better. Given that I love that first trailer so much, I wanted it to be one of the best biopics ever. I wanted it to be up there with like Straight Outta Compton or Rocket Man for me, or Ray. And I wasn't the biggest Elvis fan. I wasn't the biggest Bohemian Rhapsody fan, but I really thought in my core that this movie is gonna really be one of the best biopics I've seen ever. Not being a Bob Marley fan, I thought I would walk out learning a lot more of him, and I've learned some things about him, but I kind of learned more things on my own after seeing the movie. For a movie that has 4 talented writers, I mean, Terrence Winter, Ronaldo Marcus Green, Zach Balin, and I'm blanking on the fourth guy, and I apologize. 3 of them who I admire. I thought the script, like I said, needed a lot more work. It didn't feel epic or focus on the grand spectacle of Bob's legacy. It did feel watered down. And I know a lot of you are probably going to say, well, this was produced and the movie was consulted by the entire Marley family, Ziggy, his kids, his wife, his late wife, Rita. And they definitely picked and chose what they could say in this movie. And I do think that when they're involved, there definitely is some restrictions or guidelines. You can tell a story, but you can say this. You can't say X, Y, Z, and these things. And you definitely see that in this movie for sure, because I know I was hearing things before that. Oh, like he was a cheater. He had a few affairs. There was some not good things about him. And this movie definitely is like the more positive thing of his life and what he accomplished. I get it. It's Hollywood. Again, when your family's producing this movie, you want to have a good you want a good impression of their father, her late husband. I get it. But again, I think what people docked Bohemian Rhapsody for was that the similar thing, that they want to see more of them exploring Freddie Mercury's dark history and dark path and what he went down, stuff like that. But again, when people are very heavily involved that were close to someone who's no longer here is, that's it. I do think it's a whole different thing, and it's not trying to open a can of worms, but they're making the Michael Jackson biopic right now, and I believe the family's very involved with that too. And despite everything that's happened after he passed away, whether it's the Neverland documentary about the victims, whatever, that's probably a similar thing where it's going to be the people who are close to the family or in the family are watching that movie, are guarding that movie very closely and consulting, making sure that nothing kind of bad is going to happen to those guys. And that's Hollywood. That's biopics for you. So I just do think that I learned a lot more after seeing the movie on my own. They barely mention things about his affair, other things that they probably didn't want to go into detail about. But there's some things that if you blink or you're in the bathroom, whatever, it's a split second, and if you miss it, you'll miss it. And I said, why? I'm thinking, why include that in the first place? If you were told not to include these things, why even bother to try to attempt to put it in the movie? Kind of makes really no sense. And I was like, it felt edited very strangely. This movie didn't know what its voice was at times, and it definitely shows all through the editing. And I do that through the eyes of the editing. It had a problem of what story they were trying to convey at times. Again, it could be the storytelling of the directing, of the writing, whatever, but the editing was very choppy at times, and I was like, this movie needed either a better editor or more time given to tell the story, because it kind of felt choppy at times. There are a few things I felt very repetitive in terms of flashbacks, and it happens a lot. And I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a scene where I'll say fire in a field, and they really go back to it again and again and again and again. And at first, I understood why they were doing it, but they did it a lot throughout the entire movie to a point where I was like, okay, that seemed like enough. I think it was just unnecessary. At first, it was definitely helping the story, but they do it a lot, and I do it throughout the entire movie, and it felt really repetitive. It felt like we were watching almost a first rough cut of the movie at times. I'm like, I get it, we get it, we understand what this means, what this tries to embody, tries to explain, tries to convey, but them doing it a lot, and them doing it a lot kind of back to back, it just felt really repetitive, and it was hurting the tone of the movie, hurting the pace of the movie quite a bit. There's also something that I kind of thought was wait, huh? There's a flashback of when Bob and the Wailers were starting out before they were big, and it's established that Bob's already a grown man, Rita's already having pregnant with the first kid, and they're a band already. They're going through trying to get noticed, trying to get attention, whatever. There's a different actor playing Bob, but he's already supposed to be a grown man. And the actor is is much shorter than Kingsley Ben-Adir. And the whole time I'm like, that's supposed to be Bob, but he's already a grown man. And then we see Kingsley already as Bob, who's again a grown man. It did not add up. And I was like, why just have Kingsley just, not have the dreads and not and have a beard? Because young Bob didn't have dreads. He didn't have facial hair. Just get Kingsley, clean shaven, and just don't have the dreads, to him. It was, and they did it a lot. I was like, that's supposed to be Bob, but he's already a grown man. Why do they have two different actors playing him? It kind of made no sense. I was like, this kind of feels just not thought through. And I was like, oh, right, I guess. And again, the height difference is definitely noticeable and very substantial, to a point where I was like, this kind of makes no sense. But again, maybe I'm missing something personally, but I was very confused by it. I was like, all right, sure, whatever. I think, my biggest takeaway from this is that the movie should have really been focused on a certain point of his life and kept the focus on that. Or like I said, do the standard biopic trope, starting from the very beginning of his life, born, origin, to the very end. By them jumping all around, back and forth, months later, back, and then a year or two later, and then flashbacks again, it's not good storytelling. And that definitely goes against why structure and pace in films and filmmaking is very crucial and very important. It's almost as if this movie didn't want to follow that. And that was a mistake because they totally should have. And what I learned in film school and all my years working in entertainment is that how important structure, 3 act structure, linear stories, not linear story, but like storytelling and following that structure or having a 3 act, storytelling, how crucial it is. And this movie, I think, wanted to be something unique and wanted to go around that box and be something like, oh, we'll do this instead. It's gonna work. And yes, it works at times. It definitely does. But for the most part, it just was. It's messy. It's messy. But there is a good movie within this movie. I do believe that. And there's parts where I was still thinking about after seeing it, but it just didn't really feel like the movie knew or how to approach a Bob Marley biopic. And I do think if the movie had maybe a few more drafts, maybe had a better pace, or just had a better idea of what story they wanted to tell, it probably would have been one of the best biopics we've ever seen. I truly mean that. But to me, it just kind of felt bland at times. But again, there are really good things in it. Like I said, Lashana Lynch is a star. Kingsley Ben-Adir is a star. The cinematography is beautiful. It just didn't really know what movie it wanted to be at times. So with that, I'm still giving it a fresh review, fresh rating. I will definitely give it a 6 out of 10 or a 3 out of 5, whatever you kind of rating you guys do. But I do think this movie needed to have a few more edits or a few more just kind of like a lot more tweaks to it. But again, if you're a Bob Marley fan, I still think you should go see it. If you are curious at all, still go see it. But I would say go in cautiously because it's not the movie that I think the trailers were selling it as at times. But there are good things about it that I would watch again, like certain parts. I think I would watch this movie in certain parts, whether it's the scenes of the band, them recording some of the songs for Exodus, the scenes between Bob and Rita with Lashana and Kingsley. But it disappointed me at times. But I said it's a movie that I still will give, I think, a 6 out of 10. I think would be what I would give it. So yeah, guys, again, if you're a Bob Marley fan, definitely check it out. And I think what I don't know. Other movies are coming out for biopics. I don't know what else is coming out. I do think last year, I'm trying to think, was there any biopics last year that came out? I think the last big one was Elvis. And I thought Austin Butler did a good job as Elvis. I'm not an Elvis fan either, but I definitely kind of understood the story a lot more, I think, with that movie than I did with Bob Marley One Love. But I really do think what Taron Egerton did as Elton John Rocket Man was very special. And I was very kind of disappointed that he didn't get nominated for an Oscar, even though Rami Malek did. I thought Rami Malek was very good in that movie, Bohemian Rhapsody. Didn't love the movie either, but I do think I felt kind of similar that Kingsley Ben-Adir did a phenomenal job as Bob Marley. There's no question about it. So, but I'm trying to think if there's other any biopics coming out this year that I'm aware of. And I do think, to me, my favorite biopic is still Straight Outta Compton, musical biopic that is. I love that movie so much. I remember seeing it at a screening when I was in high school with Joel, and we were just like, this movie's fucking awesome because we were huge NWA fans. I grew up with Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, Eazy-E. And a movie to me just is literally one of the most exciting, thrilling biopics of all time, and one of the best movies I've seen in my lifetime. I'm trying to think what's coming out biopics. I still have to see Maestro. I will say that. I still gotta watch that movie. All my love for Bradley Cooper, and hopefully, we'll see. that's a whole different thing. And you know what? I'm not an Amy Winehouse fan. I'm not familiar with her music as much. But I tell you what, the trailer that showed before Bob Marley, which was Back to Black, the biopic of that movie of Amy Winehouse, definitely intrigued me. If it's gonna be a good movie, we'll wait and see. But I definitely was intrigued with the trailer, not knowing much of her story either. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed my review of Bob Marley One Love. Let us know in the comments, comment section on YouTube or Spotify, Apple, or Amazon, or wherever you get your podcast needs met. What are some of your favorite musical biopics or biopics in general? Did you love Bob Marley One Love? Do you not like it? Do you feel similar as me? We want to hear from you guys. But again, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. We're having our giveaway for Amazon gift card, so stay tuned for that. If you're entering, again, comment, let us know. But thank you guys so much for the ongoing support. We have a lot in store for you for March. And as always, we'll see you at the movies.